Um, so, like she said, I am Carly. I'm a finance grad, money coach, creator, best buddy class ever, a 4-week class that I now teach virtually. And I am super excited that you're here. If you're watching this live or the recording later, faculty is definitely welcome to watch because we all deal with emotional online spending. So today we're going to talk about you're going to learn how to curb online emotional spending and live within your means, and then also how to stop comparing yourself to others. So feel free. I definitely want this to be interactive. If you have any thoughts or questions, put them in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. And we'll have time at the end of the session for Q&A as well. So just want to do a quick check. Everyone can see it, hear me. All right. If you could do a thumbs up in the chat or a yes in the chat, that would be awesome. Thumbs up. All right. We got it. Okay. Great. So, okay. All right. So first, I'm going to have complete transparency, and I'm going to share with you a quick story about how I came to learn the importance of not comparing yourself with others, keeping up with the Joneses, and living within your means. So for me, I did this summer sales internship when I was in college selling home security systems. It was 100% commission. My first summer, my sales were so-so. The next summer, my sales increased. And then the next summer, I became a top sales rep. And this was in an Inc. 500 company, meaning this was one of the 500 fastest growing companies in the entire nation. And with a sales career, I found out very quickly that it is important, or the company culture as a sales rep is to have the appearance of success, to look rich, to look successful, to look like you have it all. And at the time, since I was a top sales rep, the company offered me a car bonus of $500. And so you can write in the chat, but any guesses as to what I did? So I was 21 and I got the car bonus. So I did have a down payment, but I took out a loan for 60 months. The payments was 560. Any guesses on the type of car that I got? I got at age 21 a Mercedes Benz. And so that do not do what I did at all. So at the time I thought, oh, what could possibly go wrong? The company's paying me $500. My monthly payments are $560. It's a win-win. And at that point, I thought, I deserve this. I'm going to have that image of success. And everything was fine until the financial market completely crashed. And that company that was the fastest growing, making all the headlines, went bankrupt. And so I learned the hard way that I did not want to just look rich, have fancy things. I wanted to truly build my financial wealth and live within my means versus trying to keep up with other people in the corporate career, keeping up with one another. I just decided I'm going to opt out. And so online spending now is more prevalent than ever before with the pandemic. And the thing that I see a lot is, life really isn't meant to be spent late night scrolling online, adding things to your cart, taking things out of the cart, adding them back to the cart, ordering the items, returning the items. Like, this is a very toxic addiction, and life does not need to be spent this way. You can completely gain control of your financial life and spending. So we're going to dive into a quick question, and I'd like to hear from you in the chat. How did you learn about money? So I know that I'm very, very grateful that people have this title, this grant, but growing up from elementary school all the way through, people didn't have a class on money. And so there is a little bit of psychology of how people learn informally, and it's called the social learning theory. So you can use this psychology theory to ditch emotional spending. And what this theory says is that people learn through observations of others, and they often imitate behaviors that are seen as rewarding. So in that case, what is it that people see? People, especially with the pandemic, spend a ton of time online, social media, or binge watching shows. And we see images of wealth that are oftentimes completely false. With shows like The Kardashians, you see flashy cars, flashy jewelry, and you begin to associate and learn that wealth is equivalent to having a bunch of stuff. And that can't be further from the truth. The problem is most of these images are false. So a few false images of wealth that we see in media. So for example, with the Real Housewives, they found out that nearly a dozen of Real Housewives are real broke, going through bankruptcy or foreclosures. They found from Sports Illustrated that 78% of former NFL players were financially stressed 2 years after retirement. And if you think winning the lottery will solve your money problems, 1 in 3 jackpot lottery winners file for bankruptcy within 5 years of winning millions of dollars. So we're going to dive into 6 tips to live within your means. So the first tip is to understand the buying process. So I see a comment here a little delayed that you're learning about money through your mom. So that's, yeah, definitely part of the social learning theory is picking up things from who you're observing, and definitely your parents are the thing that you soaked in the most. So, okay, back to tip number 1, understand the buying process. So there's 2 parts to the buying process. The first part of the buying process is to understand that buying is a transfer of emotions. So what happens is you buy something based off of the feeling you ought to have or you think you'll have when you get that product or service. So for example, if there's a single girl who gets asked out on a date by the guy of her dreams, she'll maybe go out and get a mani-pedi, she'll get a blowout, maybe a new shirt. And so all those transactions, all those purchases are made for how she thinks she'll feel with that hair blowout, with that mani-pedi on the date. So that's the first part of it. And a little self-awareness is to figure out, are you a shopaholic? And apparently this isn't just a goofy movie they made. There is a legit disorder of compulsive overspending. Stanford University showed that 6% or 17 million Americans compulsively overspend. So what does that look like? Let's talk about this. So basically, keep in mind if you are anxious, stressed, depressed, and you find yourself logging onto Amazon, putting things in the cart, buying things that you don't really know, feeling remorse and regret, here's what I want you to do is to kind of think and brainstorm a few things that you can do instead of emotional online shopping. So if you have any idea of like what you can do instead of emotional shopping, definitely let me know in the chat. I know a few baseline things is you can find another outlet for that stress or anxiety. So that could be going on a run. For me, my best tip is to have a mood lift is just to talk with friends. So go on a walk, read a book. And then here's a step-by-step on what to do instead of emotional spending. So the first thing that I want you to do is to pinpoint how you're feeling. So pinpoint the emotion that you're feeling. So for example, maybe someone close to you passed away, like your grandmother, and you're approaching on the year anniversary of her passing away. So pinpoint, okay, this is what's happening. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling grief. And so once you have that pinpointed, then I definitely want you to give yourself permission to feel the way that you're feeling. And okay. And then I'm getting a few delayed responses here on the question about what you can do instead of spending emotional. And these are great. Take a look at the empty bank account. That is awesome. Remember that bills still have to be paid. Great. Awesome. But yeah, so another kind of process is then allow yourself to feel the sadness or whatever it is that you're feeling, and then brainstorm on what you emotionally need. So you don't emotionally need some random item on Amazon if you're sad that your grandmother passed away. So maybe what you need is a hug from your mom or someone in the family to just comfort you. And then one thing that is huge is once you pinpoint what you emotionally need is to ask for it and go for it. Clarify your needs with others and then with yourself. And that can be something as simple in this example is like, hey mom, I'm really feeling it. Grandma passed away. I need a big hug. So try processing through the feelings. And along with this tip to understand the buying process, I want you guys to all understand that there are people who are buyers. Their full-time job as a career is to buy items to put them on the shelves. And these buyers are human. They don't always get it right. So think about the toilet paper situation. The people at HEB who are in charge of ordering toilet paper to get on shelves clearly did not have the insight to know, okay, a pandemic's coming, everyone's going to want toilet paper. And so they did not have enough on the shelves. But in many circumstances, buyers do the opposite, where they put too much item on the shelves. And there is a point where they want to just get rid of it. And so they drastically will drop the price. So let's talk about the markup. So they found, Entrepreneur Magazine found that the markup of most products is 50%, or essentially twice the cost. So if something costs, we'll just say the toilet paper cost $1 to actually make, it would then be sold for $2. And so knowing this actually will help you live within your means. So since I know this, how do I buy things? Think of February 15th. The day after Valentine's, when the buyers over ordered all the little heart candies and chocolates, and that is when I buy. So for example, this past Valentine's Day, I got the heart boxes for 25 cents. They were drastically discounted. So keep in mind that process of buying, and that buying is a transfer of emotions. There's a lot of emotions going on. And then when you do buy, realize that everything you buy is incredibly marked up, and be aware that you can find a lower cost item if you just wait a little bit. So an example of some markups can be off the charts. Popcorn, this is one that's outrageous, is marked up 1,300%. And the next step to live within your means is to realize that everything is negotiable. And when I say everything, I mean everything. So a few years ago, I negotiated down the price of my vehicle state inspection. And so I got my vehicle inspected, just as you do every year at a national chain. And I was checking out and they said, this is how much it is. And I just asked them, I said, oh, what discounts do you have? Do you have like a 20% off coupon or something? Mind you, I was very well aware that vehicle state inspections don't really go on sale. I still asked, and the initial response was no, like, of course, vehicle state inspections do not go on sale. But I just smiled and then I asked again, and he said, well, hold on a second. And he must have gone on his computer and had like a Rolodex of potential coupons. And he clicked and he was like, all right, I can do 15% off for the store manager discount. And so everything is negotiable. If something isn't negotiable, what that means is you're not talking to the right person or waiting long enough. So what I mean by that, in that case, if I wasn't talking to the manager, the person would not have been able to give me that discount. So you always have to talk to the decision maker, whether that's a supervisor, owner, manager. And then in terms of living with your means, a big tip is just to wait. And that is negotiating as well, being able to walk away from the deal. So spoiler alert, Apple will be coming out with a new product in 6 months. So the current Apple product that you have will drop in value. So everything, especially things like technology, phones, TVs, tablets, cell phones, all of that, if you have your eye on a particular model, definitely go for it. But if you just wait 6 months, a year from now, that product will drop in price. So next tip we have is tip number 3, to realize that more expensive doesn't always mean better quality. So back to my story from the beginning, we talked about how I bought the luxury car, and part of it is the keeping up with the culture of the work that I was in. But also part of it is this entitlement of, oh, I deserve this nicer quality. It's going to last longer. I'll pay more for this luxury item. And the truth is, luxury items are a little, like, slightly bit better products, but they have a much larger advertising and marketing budget to convince you that they're substantially and significantly better products. When the reality is, for me, in my case, I remember driving my little luxury car thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I don't have to spend money on service. It'll last super long. And that just was not the case. So I remember I had one of those the navigation screens that kind of opened up when you turn the car on. And one day, this is only a few years after having this car, the screen just completely blacked out. And I called around, and it was something that couldn't be repaired. It had to be replaced. And the quotes that I had were like for a couple $1,000s for a navigation system. So I just knew that I was not going to spend a couple $1,000s on a navigation to replace it. And the car, essentially, especially with luxury items that are cars or boats, for example, tend to come with outrageously high cost to service and maintain them. And that car was the worst car in terms of every other. Like, I would get in the car at one point where it was like, oh no, the check engine light's going to come on again, because it did just break like constantly. So keep that in mind. Luxury items, still, you lose them, they break, or they go out of style. And the next tip to live within your means is to learn what a deal really, really is. And so right now, I know that there's a lot of uncertainty, especially for college students. You're like, is the market going to completely crash with the pandemic? The future's super uncertain. And so I wanted to go back to another time in history where finances were so unpredictable, so scary. There was a lot of fear. People were underemployed, unemployed, they lost their savings, their everything. So this was the Great Depression. So what I love about the Great Depression is when things got tight financially, people actually changed, majorly changed their spending habits. And my favorite saying from the time of the Great Depression was use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. And that is what I mean when it comes to learn what a deal really is. So, for example, nowadays, flash forward to now where, finances are stressful, things are out of control, don't know what's going to happen, future's unknown. What do people do? Basically, they go online and it's like, oh my gosh, it's Prime Day. Like, I'll get a discounted robotic vacuum machine that I don't really even need. And, or, oh wow, this item has free shipping. And it's kind of like, okay, something's off in this little picture here. So, my humble opinion, we are worse off now versus the Great Depression in the sense that during the Great Depression, people were at zero, like they had zero savings. Everything was at zero. Now, with the economy, people owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. I just did a blog post. NerdWallet showed the average household with credit card debt owes just over $7,000. And the average credit card interest rate is almost 16%. So it's kind of like, okay, you owe thousands of dollars with high interest and you're happy because you got free shipping. Like something is wrong with this picture. So what this saying means, use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without, is essentially the best way to go green. Use what you already have for as long as you possibly can, wear it out, and then make it do. Like keep using whatever phone is, even if it's after the 2 years of your contract. When something breaks, you can even do without. So a little clarification. So for deals, you would want to get something when you have gone through this little quote where you've already used it up, you've worn it out, you've made it do, you've done without. Then that's time to legitimately look for a deal. So personally, because of what we talked about earlier about the markup and how the buying process works, I pretty much only now buy clearance. So there's this magical space in stores when you physically go to the store. It's normally towards the back and it's clearance where everything is 50, 75% off. So I shop almost like a man where it's like, okay, let's say sweaters, like my sweaters don't fit anymore, or, there's holes in them, whatever. I've worn it out. I'm like, okay, it's time for a new sweater. And I'll go into the store, just shop like a man. Like I'm on a mission to get the sweater. I get the sweater and then I'm done. So be intentional about your deals and shopping. So clearance is where I head to. And then I also do like the discount stores like TJ Maxx or Ross or Marshalls, and then of course outlet stores. Now, if anyone's here who they're saying, I'm really tired of emotional online spending, like I said earlier, where it's just scrolling, adding things to the cart, ordering, returning, and remorse, then this is for you. So to really curb that emotional online spending, I recommend doing what I call weekly cash. So Weekly cash is a brilliant system for managing money for day-to-day purchases in areas that people tend to overspend. So that would be like food, takeout is a big thing. People are spending a lot of money on takeout these days, entertainment, and then of course the late night online shopping of just random items. So what I do with weekly cash, this is something I started over a decade ago, and I do it to this day. And I had one girl, she owed about $45,000 and she paid off all of her student loans in 28 months. And she said that her magic pill that really helped is taking out weekly cash, just a set amount of cash and making it last for the week. So let me explain why this works so good. Studies have shown that you spend on average 12 to 18% less with physically using cash versus using credit card. So a couple examples along with this is McDonald's, when they first started offering credit card purchases, the average transaction went from $4.50 to $7, almost doubled in this case. And what happens, it makes sense when they ask things like, oh, would you like to add fries to that? People just are like, sure, why not? And just swipe. So plastic does not process in your brain that you're spending money, especially with the online purchases where your payment information is already logged in. You don't have to do anything except click a button to purchase, and it's done. With cash purchases, you see the set amount, and when it's gone, it is gone. And if you don't believe me, think about casinos. They also know that plastic does not process in your brain. So instead of people putting down $100 bills on the table, they put down black and red plastic chips. So cash works. And so what I have for you, if you want something concrete to follow up after this presentation with emotional online spending, do a weekly cash challenge. So there's lots of different money challenges. Some of them are like a no spend where you just don't spend any money. This is different where I'm allowing you to spend, but just to have a set limit. So take a set amount of cash out from your ATM, definitely from your bank. You don't want to get any fees for getting cash, and then make it last for the entire week. So for me, I personally take out $120 and I make that last for a week. So it's like clockwork. So Fridays, I go to my ATM, I get $120, and then I meal plan. I get my necessities first, so groceries, and then I pay for gas. I literally walk in and give them cash. And then the rest is for other day-to-day expenses. So for example, I have a baby shower this weekend for a friend, so I'll go and get a little baby gift from the registry. So when I learned the hard way of like comparing myself to the other sales reps and keeping up with other people, I started reading everything I possibly could about personal finance. And across the board, all the financial gurus had the same piece of advice. And that was, if you want to get your spending under control, use cash. And so I thought way back then, like, if they're all saying this, there must be something to it. And so I highly recommend doing a 3-week weekly cash challenge. So of course, you're still going to have your fixed expenses. So for me, like my cell phone, my insurance, all of that that's fixed and set, I automate, and those are automatically drafted from my bank account. But for these day-to-day purchases, I take out a set amount of cash. And this will not only curb your emotional online spending, this will put a hard stop for 3 weeks where you're just making purchases with the physical cash. So I hope you try that out. The next tip to live within your means, tip number 5, is to recognize money correlations. So correlation is when this thing over here leads to that thing over there. And oftentimes you're rewarded or you're punished. And so I definitely know that good things happen or bad things happen to good people all of the time. I'm totally aware with that. However, generally speaking, in life, doing what is right comes with a reward that correlates to spending or not spending money. And then doing what is wrong comes with a punishment that correlates to spending more money. So money correlations, you can see it everywhere once you think of it this way. So for example, I thought of this back when I was young 20 something. I kept going really fast on the highway. And the result was I would get speeding tickets. And so I live in Austin. My parents are in Fort Worth. So there's that straight shot, that drive up 35. And so I would just go fast. And the speed limit is like 75 to begin with, or something like that. And so I would get speed tickets. And it crossed my mind though, as I was like writing a check for a couple $100 for a speeding ticket, like, wait a second. I was doing what was probably not the greatest. I was driving way too fast. And that is not the best thing for my personal safety and the safety of other drivers around. And so that connected to me forking over a couple $100 for the speeding ticket. So then once I recognized that, I kind of realized like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be speeding anymore. And speed limits, there for a reason. So you can see, again, money correlations in everything. So if you've been meaning to kick a bad habit, now is the time. So everyone knows that smoking or drinking leads to a lot of issues with your health, whether that is lung cancer, whether it's heartburn, heart disease, kidney failure. And so doing something in excess, like the smoking or excessively drinking, also correlates into spending money. So Times reported that the cost of smoking over your lifetime is anywhere between $1 to $2 million over a lifetime. And so that is obviously the cost of cigarettes to purchase continually throughout your life. And then in addition to that, that includes extra medical costs that come along with that habit. So think through, now's the time. If you have something that you've been meaning to kind of ditch, whether that's smoking, drinking, gambling, a major thing is constantly getting fast food or takeout and greasy foods. Now is the time to reevaluate, and that will help your financial future and your personal health. So highly recommend doing the weekly cash challenge. The 6th tip that we're going to go over is to say no to FOMO, fear of missing out. So I get it. It is really, really challenging nowadays with social media to, pick whatever it is that you do, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can pop on and everyone's doing something amazing. You're seeing the highlight reels all at once. So whether that's someone getting the career or internship that you want, or going on a spring break that you want to go on, you scroll and scroll and it's like everyone is doing everything cool. And how in the world can they afford to do it? And so I want to give you permission just to opt out, to give yourself permission to say no. And so the opposite of FOMO is JOMO, which is the joy of missing out, where you opt out of a rat race, opt out of doing, going. So one other thing, it's like, hello, hi, my name is Carly. I'm an addict. I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so I don't know if you're like me, but it is super hard to say no, especially what you'll find throughout your 20s as you graduate is that it'll just be one thing after the next. There's always going to be someone's birthday extravaganza, like birth month, where your friends are going to want to do celebrations after celebrations. And then there's going to be weddings and bridesmaids and wedding showers and bachelorette parties and baby showers. And it just goes on and on and on. So right now I'm giving you permission to say no. So what I've found is that you cannot do life to please other people. It's not possible. Their time and money are limited resources. So there are only so many hours in the day and dollars in the bank. So when something doesn't work for you financially, you can just say no. Your response can be the one word no. You don't even have to give a reason why. So for example, if a cousin has a destination wedding in Fiji and it's crazy expensive, you can just say, nope, sorry, I can't. You don't even have to apologize, but just no, can't do that. Or if your friends want to go to Vegas for a weekend trip just because, and it'll be about $750, you can, of course, just say no. So that is part of living within your means is saying no. And that also highly ties into, we're going to talk about how to stop comparing yourself to others. So getting out of this FOMO attitude and mindset will help you stop comparing yourself to others. But there are two more tips with this specifically about comparing yourself to others. So the first thing is to realize that external appearances of success don't mean actual success, or more importantly, genuine happiness. So of course, from my story, I found out that, how the Inc. 500 fastest growing company that clearly screams success, lots of money, the company's doing well, and then having things like car bonuses. Those were all external signs of success, but clearly internally, behind closed doors, the company was not actually doing well and in financial distress. Another example is one of my favorite little sitcoms is How I Met Your Mother, How I Met Your Mother. And this is just to go on in the rabbit hole, the rat race of chasing after the next thing. The lead actor in How I Met Your Mother said that as the show grew in popularity, he grew further and further into a very deep, deep depression. And so I know a lot of times, especially when you're graduating or you're starting your young adult life, it kind of seems like, okay, when I have a job, I'll be happy. And then it's okay, when I have a 6-figure income, then I'll be happy. When I have a house in my dream neighborhood, then I'll be happy. That is not the case. So again, with the actor on How I Met Your Mother, the guy who played Ted, he thought that when he tasted success, he would be happy. Everything that he wanted, would make him genuinely happy inside. And again, as the show grew and grew, his depression increased and increased. So recognize that It's a never-ending quest, and to be content with what you have right now. Another tip is to stop comparing yourself by naming this habit of comparing yourself as pride, and then turn that pride into humility. So let me break this down. I know comparing yourself to others is super hard with social media, with everything. It always looks like people have it together. They're further along than you. They're living the life that you've envisioned. Um, and so I always viewed pride not at all related to comparing myself to other people. But in fact, it turns out pride can be a good thing. But when you boil down pride, it can be also very toxic, and it is comparing yourself to others. So pride is whenever you look at what other people have and you measure yourself as superior or inferior, where you either feel better or worse off than someone else. And what is interestingly enough is when you study and learn about pride, when you are looking at other people as worse than, as yourself as worse than other people, that is incredibly toxic. And so the fix to that, measuring up or measuring down, is to have humility. So humility is a virtue. And essentially, humility is just when you are content with who you are and you view yourself as nothing more or nothing less than the person next to you. So it's the idea that you're worthy as you are. You're worthy of love just for existing, not when you get the promotion, when you get that higher income, when you get your master's, when you're married, when you have the house, when you have the car. So you're worthy of love as you are right now. And knowing that you don't have to be more or less than anyone else, you just are worthy for being in existence. So we have a few more minutes before we'll open up for more questions. And so another story in terms of comparing yourself to others, and that'll kind of throw you off, because I know it threw me off, is Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett is a famous investor. He has a net worth now of over $100 billion. And the crazy thing is you wouldn't know it. He does not have yachts or multiple mansions or flashy luxury cars. According to Today Magazine, he bought his home in 1958 for $31,000, which is still not that much in today's dollars. It's about $250,000 in today's dollars. So you have someone with a net worth of 100 billion. They bought their house for $31,000, and that's the house that they still live in. And so when it comes to managing money, it isn't what you think it is. Wealth is completely different than what you think it is. So PhD Thomas Stanley, he was curious of how true wealthy people live. And he sent out surveys to millions or to thousands of millionaires. And he found that millionaires, the quote he has in his best-selling book, The Millionaire Next Door, is that millionaires live well below their means, and that financial independence is way more important than displaying a high social status. And so that's exactly true when you hear the story of Warren Buffett and his housing. So a couple insider stories that I pulled up on Buffett online. Forbes reported way back when he had his first child, when the child was born, instead of buying a cradle, he turned a dresser that he already had into a cradle. And for his second child, he borrowed a crib from a friend, Another story was when he was in a business meeting, he thought that room service was way too expensive for drinks. So he actually called a friend to bring in a 6-pack of Pepsi. So he is notorious for his frugality and consistently living extremely, extremely below his means. So thank you guys for those of y'all that are with me. I know that it's Friday afternoon and it's the weekend and all of that, but I did want to open it up here in just a second for Q&A. I did want to say, and I always say this when I do Best Money Class Ever, is you only live once. So be smart with your money now. The YOLO mentality is true in the sense that you really do only live once. And so since that's the case, be smart with your money now. You don't have to spend a lifetime spending interest on credit card debt and bills and all of that. Instead, you can spend a lifetime content with what you have and earning interest on your investments. So before we hop into Q&A, I did want to say that you don't need to figure this money stuff out alone. I know that it's super hard. The struggle is real. Definitely would love to connect. I have been on Best Money Class Ever. It's at Best Money Class Ever is on Facebook, and I'm brand new to TikTok, Instagram, and Pinterest. So definitely connect, follow Best Money Class Ever for more tips down the road on how to curb emotional online spending and everything personal finance related. So my website too is bestmoneyclassever.com. If you want ongoing newsletters, you can definitely sign up and get juicy, fun personal finance tips straight in your inbox. So now we will go ahead and open it up for Q&A if anyone has a question now. Okay, so we have a question coming in. How do I be smart with money when it comes to treating or rewarding myself when I know I deserve it? Sometimes I think I treat myself, I think it's too much. Yeah, too much. Okay, great. Thank you so much for asking, Alejandra. So here, how do I be smart with, let me think about this for a second. So I think now it's like the treat yourself mentality. I think that you can treat yourself without spending a ton of money. Just doing little basic things. Like for me, treating myself can be getting a snow cone. I am a sucker for snow cones. Like if I'm like, you know what, it's been a hard week, I'm going to get myself a snow cone. So I recommend that is finding little bitty things, like something that you can do daily that's completely free or low cost, like a snow cone. And that way you are rewarding yourself, you are, treating yourself, but you're not financially putting yourself in a bad situation. So a few other examples of like treating yourself would be working hard and then playing hard. So for example, whenever I do my signature 4-week class, I have people almost like pinpoint their dream trip. So for me, reward, when I think reward, I think Jamaica or Southeast Asia. So I highly recommend for people to have what's called a debt-free trip. So I know you guys are still in college, not quite making an income yet, but have something in mind where you can like put a picture on your mirror, you can see it. It's there, whether for me it's travel, and I have people think of like a debt-free trip. And then once you reach that milestone, then you have that experience that you were working so hard to reach. Okay, so let me catch up on the comments here. Okay. hopefully that answered with treating yourself. So the next question we have is, what do you think of investing money in the stock market? I think that that is an amazing idea. And that is something that you definitely should do. So I believe it was last year I spoke and I did a talk on how to start investing. I guess in short, a short answer is I'm a fan of what's called target date index funds. So essentially, an index fund just follows the stock market. They are historically earning more than individual stocks. So I know a lot of times people are like, oh, Telsa or Apple stock or this thing or that thing, which is really fun and exciting. But when it comes to investing, I like to think boring. Like this is long term. And so historically, over the long term, index funds earn more than actively managed funds or individual stocks. So you earn more and then you spend less. So I would look to go to a site like Vanguard or Fidelity. Vanguard's my favorite because they're low cost. The fees on these funds are like 0.13% versus 1 to 3% you get if you were trading on your own. So that's kind of a starting base, is to set up to invest a set amount of your income. If you have a part-time job or babysit or anything like that. So a good starting point is to invest 10% of your pay. And again, I recommend doing target date index funds. So check those out. Okay, let's see the next question here. Okay, so just a comment here. I love how you related not spending money with spending meaningful time with other people. Positive community is definitely key for sure. So now people clearly are feeling more isolated and alone than ever before. And again, for me, like I mentioned earlier, is that time with friends, going on a walk, something pandemic friendly, is always a mood booster. And a lot of experiences can be completely free with friends. So any kind of walk, hike in nature, free experience, that is so important to be plugged in with a community. Community is definitely everything. So do we have any other questions from anybody? I'll give it a second. Okay, we do. Let's see. All right, so we have a comment here. I liked that you mentioned to clarify your needs and that marking up the prices. Okay. Let's see. What percent of our future monthly income should we save for a future home? Okay. So that's a good question. That's a really long conversation, but in general, to go back to the investing, I say 10% of your income for investing. And then the process that I recommend for saving for a home is if you have debt, knock out especially the high interest debt as soon as you possibly can when you start working. So pay all of your minimums plus an extra 300 or more to the highest interest debt. Once that highest interest debt is paid off, then you'll take that old minimum and throw it at the next highest interest debt, so on and so forth. So before, getting a home, I highly recommend knocking out, especially high interest credit card debt. And then with that said, what you can do is you can take all of your old debt minimum payments plus that extra 300, I call it a Spartan amount, your extra Spartan amount of 300. Let's say your credit card minimums come to $500 plus a set extra 300, every month would be $800. So then once you're debt free, take that $800 and throw that into savings for a home. So that is kind of a tip, an idea. So that can be really beneficial, especially like if you have a car payment. Once your car is paid off, you are used to making that car payment. So you can continue to make that payment, but then put that money in savings for your next car or for a purchase like a home. So next question is to, correct. Is it better to buy a house or build your own? So I guess there's not really a clear-cut answer to that. As in my introduction, I'm not sure if you guys realized or let that sink in, but I do full-time live in a house, live in an RV. That's my housing, is an RV. I took a 6-month sabbatical and I traveled different states. And then now I haven't been traveling, but I've just been enjoying tiny living. So I feel like historically, houses that are being built typically are built and they're a lot larger than they used to be. And so the price for, I'm not sure if the question is to buy a house, an existing house, or have a house built. So the houses that are being built by default are likely going to be larger in square feet, which tends to be higher total cost because it's a larger home. But again, there's a lot of factors. I unfortunately don't have a crystal clear answer on that one, but I would want, my gut would be that an existing house, you would spend less. Let's see. I think that is all of the questions, and it's actually 5 o'clock on the dot. So again, thank you guys so much for joining. I know there's a million different places to be on a Friday, so I appreciate that you're here now. And for those of you guys watching later, thank you. I appreciate you, and I hope that you do curb your online emotional spending.
Thank you so much, Carly. We really enjoyed the tips, and I'm sure the students that are with us right now can run with those. Again, this presentation will be saved and uploaded to our website. There will also be a drawing for prizes from the registration list. So be on the lookout on your email, the email that you use for the registration. Once again, thank you so much, Carly, for being with us once again. And Dr. Flores, do you have anything that you would like to share?
I just want to say thank you so much, Carly. It's good to see you. We appreciate the wonderful tips you gave, and I think we'll all take a look at our spending habits from here on out. I appreciate everyone who joined us today, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon, but you can get access to all of the presentations on our website, and we will be sending out an email with that information. So good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.